You're now listening to I signed a marriage contract with my ex's billionaire boss. Episode 3. Don't skip episode 1, it all begins there. Emma's POV. I sat at the dining table, my thoughts far away from the fancy meal in front of me. My fork twirled the spaghetti on my plate endlessly, my mind stuck on Ryan's words. His words crushed me, even though I tried to act indifferent. Time and time again, Ryan had proven I never really mattered to him. I was just something he could easily discard when something better came along. Well, I was done being his afterthought. He was going to pay for using me like that. I barely noticed Liam's father watching me closely until his voice cut through my thoughts. So, Emma, are you ready to marry my son? Or is this whole dating thing just a waste of time? My throat closed up, and I nearly choked on the piece of food I had just forced myself to swallow. Marriage? Grandchildren? What the hell had I gotten myself into? Liam's father noticed that I was uncomfortable. Right. He didn't tell you how much. I'm eager for him to get married and to bore my grandkids, did he? I shook my head. Liam didn't tell me all this. I only thought his father was one of those men who only wanted to see their sons with a woman, probably to prove that they are not gay. My eyes widened as his words sank in. I began, but nothing coherent followed. I could feel the heat creeping up my neck, and I instinctively looked at Liam for help. Before I could formulate a response, Liam, who had been having a hushed conversation with Ryan moments ago far away from the dining table, stepped forward smoothly. Dad, he said, his voice calm but firm. Let's not rush things, all right? We're taking things one step at a time. His father frowned, clearly unimpressed. One step at a time? Liam, I'm not getting any younger. What's the point of dating if you don't plan to wed and give me grandchildren? Liam sighed but didn't waver. He reached for my hand under the table and squeezed it reassuringly. The day will come, Dad. Just give us time. His father looked at us both for a long moment, then sighed, shaking his head. Fine, but don't keep me waiting forever. Dinner carried on in an awkward haze after that. The food, which I was sure was probably delicious, tasted like cardboard in my mouth. I just wanted to get out of there. Finally, Liam drove me back to my villa. The silence in the car was oddly comforting, but my mind was still racing. He glanced at me briefly before speaking. I'm sorry about my dad, he said sincerely. He can be persistent. I let out a short laugh, shaking my head. Persistent is an understatement. Liam smirked. I hope you weren't too caught off guard. I wasn't, I replied honestly. But I was caught off guard by Ryan's presence. I turned to him with narrowed eyes. Why did you invite him? Liam's fingers drummed against the steering wheel as he considered his answer. It was part of the plan, he said finally, making him regret losing you. And from what I saw, it's working. I bit my lip, thinking back to the way Ryan had looked at me earlier, like he couldn't believe I was here, dressed like this, with someone like Liam. You think so? I asked, not entirely convinced. I know so, Liam said confidently. Ryan's the kind of guy who doesn't appreciate what he has until it's gone. That made me pause. Why are you putting so much effort into this, though? I asked, studying his profile. What's in it for you? Liam smirked, his blue eyes flicking to mine for a second before returning to the road. Freedom, he said simply. Freedom from blind dates my dad keeps setting up. Freedom from business women throwing their daughters at me like I'm some golden ticket. I couldn't help but laugh. So I'm your escape plan? Exactly, he said, grinning. When we arrived at my villa, Liam parked the car and turned to me. Good night, Emma, he said, his voice softer than before. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow? I raised an eyebrow. He leaned back, looking way too pleased with himself. I'm kind of a big deal, you know? Everyone's watching. If we don't show up together every now and then, people will start talking. I rolled my eyes but smiled. Whatever you say. Good night, Liam. As I stepped inside my villa, I let out a long breath. Liam was arrogant, no doubt about that. But he was also considerate in his own strange way. He was helping me in a way I didn't even realize I needed. Maybe he was a man sent from the heavens to heal my broken heart. I'd be glad about that because I found him attractive and at the same time annoying. But then again, I didn't think I was ready to fall in love with anyone, not yet. But my thoughts were cut short when I noticed something off. My door. It was slightly open. My heart skipped a beat. I pushed it wider cautiously and stepped inside. And there he was. Ryan, sitting on my couch like he owned the place. His legs crossed, and his eyes locked on me the second I walked in. How the hell did you get in? I demanded, my voice sharp. Ryan smirked, standing up slowly. I'm not ready to let you go, Emma, he said, ignoring my question as he stepped toward me with purpose. I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. You don't get to say that, I snapped. Not after everything. He ignored me, closing the distance between us. I made a mistake, he murmured, his voice low and filled with something I couldn't quite place. I want you back. Before I could react, before I could push him away or even think, Ryan leaned in and pressed his lips against mine. I froze, shock coursing through me. I didn't kiss him back, but I couldn't move either. What the hell was happening? Emma's pov. I wrenched myself from Ryan, my palm stinging as I slapped him across the face. The sharp sound cut through the room, but it did nothing to erase the disgust churning in my stomach. Don't you ever try that again, I hissed, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. Ryan reached up and touched his cheek. His lips curled into that infuriating smirk that I had once found so charming. Still feisty, I see, he murmured. Then, with a teasing glint in his eyes, he leaned in a little closer. Tell me, Emma, does Liam kiss better than I do? I glared at him, refusing to dignify that with an answer. I stepped back, crossing my arms tightly over my chest. That's when I noticed it, the slight sway in his stance, the way his eyes were a little too glossy. He was drunk. Of course he was. Go home, Ryan, I said, exasperation thick in my voice. You're drunk and I'm not in the mood to deal with your nonsense. But Ryan just chuckled, running a hand through his messy hair. I'm not leaving, Emma. Not until you hear me out. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my temper in check. If you don't leave right now, I'll call the police. Ryan's smirk faltered for a second before he shrugged. Fine, I'll go. But don't think for a second I'm giving up. He pointed a finger at me, his eyes dark with something I couldn't quite place. Not even the police can keep me away from you. Not till you admit you still want me. And definitely not until you leave Liam. I rolled my eyes and grabbed his arm, pushing him toward the door. Goodbye, Ryan. Once he was out, I slammed the door shut and locked it. Once, twice, 3 times. Just to make sure. I stood there for a moment, leaning against the door, letting out a deep breath. God, what a mess. I hated him. Truly I did, but something inside me got a sadistic kick from this. He wanted me still, which meant my revenge was working. That things weren't going according to plan. They were spiraling out of control. And I wasn't sure how much more I was going to be able to play this before it backfired. The next morning, I was out in my car. I did not wait for Liam to come to get me. I was too restless, too frustrated to wait around doing nothing. I drove myself to his office for a distraction. Well, he'd tell me we were going to see today. But the moment I stepped into the lobby, I could feel it. The eyes. The whispers. Look, it's the lady in the video. Mr. Ryan's ex? I heard she was with him for years. Liam's fiancée? Yeah, right. I swallowed hard, keeping my head high. As I walked toward the elevator, pretending I didn't hear a thing. But inside, my stomach twisted with embarrassment. How did they even find out? The news headline was only supposed to be about me being Liam's girlfriend. How come Ryan was included in the topic? That bastard was up to something. Then, when the elevator doors slid open and I stepped out, I saw him. Ryan, walking to where the elevator was, but then, seeing me, he came to a halt. He was standing in the middle of my path, an infuriating smirk on his face. Smug, way too smug. I approached him, striding up, hands at my sides and fists. You just couldn't help yourself, could you? I demanded. Ryan did an overdone acting of innocence as he tilted his head. What do you mean, sweetheart? I narrowed my eyes. The rumors. Ryan. People aren't shutting up about me being your ex instead of Liam's fiancée. Was this your doing? He shrugged, clearly enjoying every second of this. People talk, Emma. It's not my fault they have a fascination with our past. Fascination about our past. I scoffed. Tell me how your colleagues got to know about us in the first place. I asked, but he ignored me, staring at me with a sly smile. I huffed in frustration, jabbing a finger at his chest. Listen to me, Ryan. I don't care what you do, but you will not ruin this for me. He leaned closer to me, his voice dropping to a whisper. Emma, sweetheart, unless there's a very good reason why, Liam's family should say no to you. As a daughter-in-law-to-be, I think you'll be fine. His words sent a shiver down my spine. But before I could respond, he turned and then disappeared, blowing a kiss at me as he left me standing here, bemused and ill at ease. What had he meant by that? I didn't have time for reflection. I hurried to Liam's office, barely tapping on the door before bursting in. Liam stood behind his desk, his back to me. His phone had dropped from his ear, then into his pocket. He turned to me, his face unreadable. Your pictures with Ryan are all over the internet. My heart dropped. What? He pulled his phone out, sliding his phone across the desk. I picked it up with trembling hands and stared at the screen. There they were. Pictures of Ryan and me kissing, laughing, standing too close. Old pictures, ones I thought would be buried since I was done with him. But now they were everywhere, plastered across gossip sites headlining my supposed questionably loyal ways to Liam. I didn't do this, I stammered, placing the phone down gingerly. Liam let out a sigh, rubbing a hand over his face. I know. It's obvious who did. Ryan, I said, anger tight in my voice. He's trying to ruin things for us. Liam leaned back in his chair, watching me with an unreadable expression. And what are you going to do about it? I swallowed, my fists clenched. I'm going to make sure he doesn't win. I'm not letting him ruin my life again. But Liam wasn't just taking my word. He stood up and walked toward me. You are being too soft with him, and I really don't care. At this rate, he would ruin everything for me. And I don't want that. So the best thing to do is to make him pay dearly. How? I questioned in curiosity, making Liam smile at me. He pulled me close by my waist, and then he muttered close to my ear in such a desirable way. I tensed up immediately, unable to believe he had such an effect on me. Let's get married. The story continues in episode 4.